You know, it could be all related to the dose. It's all about the dose. Could be that. But I highly doubt it. Some things I can do for 1,000 reps and then live my life normally with no problems. I can, go about work and moving around the house and backyard and whatever. And then other things I do and I'm a complete corpse. I sleep like a log and I'm just generally always tired. It's like this fog around me. So I doubt it is just the dose. I think, well, maybe you could say also that who you are, what your weaknesses are, also, in the equation. But there are some exercises that you do that absolutely end you. 2 days ago I did, I forget now, how many was it? 600 sit-ups or something like this. 35 down. So 35, 34, 33, all the way throughout the day, all the way to 1. And man, it's a struggle. Like, I'm sore in the hips, I'm sore in my lower back, I'm sore everywhere. Like, I'm also tired, fatigued, cloudy, yawning all the time. I can do 1,000 push-ups, no problem. Like, I'm not thrashed after doing all of that work. The following day, I might feel a little bit of fatigue through the chest, through the triceps. But really, after the first week of introducing push-ups, I haven't been sore properly at all. With sit-ups, well, this time is much worse than last time. It seems like it's getting worse and worse. Obviously, I'm increasing the volume, probably too early, probably it's a big shock, but it's not any different progression that I used for the push-ups. For push-ups, I went even more kind of rapid into it. I remember the first time I did push-ups, I think I did 30 down. It was a bit sore. Next one, 35, 36, 37. Ended up doing 45 down. And then the other day I did like 70. What was yesterday? I did 70, 69, 68, all the way to 65, condensed. And I'm fine. It's becoming very clear to me that if you're going to be doing core, you need to really restructure everything that you're, doing around that. There's a reason why we all subconsciously go away from working core. It's not sexy. Basically, 99% of the time, we can absolutely thrash our core without touching a piece of equipment at all. You just use your body weight. That's not sexy. And also, subconsciously, we probably, divert from that type of work because of the subconscious feeling that we have after it. We're just tired, we're burnt out. Something got to do with the spinal cord. If you think about what the core is, some people define it as the core being from your chin all the way down to your pubic bone or to your pelvic floor. I think generally people think it's below your ribs and between the ribs and the pelvis is what the core is. I generally kind of subscribe to that idea. That's where the core is. The core is the area that is least protected by your skeletal system. If you think about the whole spinal cord, your cervical spine, your thoracic spine, there's structures there, scapula, ribs, lots of rigidity, lots of structure, lots of bony tissue to kind of anchor ourselves. Then you get to the lumbar spine, and then there's basically nothing. It's like a lollipop out in the wind. There's nothing there until you hit the pelvis. The pelvis, again, very, very solid structure, great anchor points around, so we're quite strong. Muscles are strong around that. There's a base. The lumbar region, there's nothing. There's just a lumbar spine, vertebra, and then there's nothingness. So at the front, there's all these muscles, digestive organs. At the back, there's some muscles, but really it's the soft tissue that's holding us together in the lumbar spine. And so we call that the core because it's supporting, let's say, the most vulnerable position of our spine, maybe excluding the neck. But the neck is not something that we weight bear with. It just freaking holds our skull. If you are a fighter, MMA fighter, boxer, or, F1 driver or something like that, okay, you need to worry about the neck because of the gravitational forces involved, because of the forces from the punches, kicks, and whatever. But if you're a lifter, you generally don't need to worry about the neck. The weakest link in our body is the lumbar spine. That's really the differentiator, I think, between the weak people and strong people. How much power are you leaking through the lumbar spine? And now, which structures are responsible for limiting that leaking power? Well, we say the core encompasses a whole lot of muscles and a whole lot of planes of motion, what is the best way to go about it? Isometrics, do we go for movement? How do you go about it? Some people talk about, rotational exercise are the best. Some people are talking about isometrics. Some people are saying flexion extension like any other muscle. So a lot goes into it. But my understanding is, man, and once again, it could be the dose. It also could be my, training history. I have not spent, in a very, very long time, I haven't done core like this. I think the last time I did core like this was basically during the basketball days. It was all about the basics, push-ups, pull-ups, lots of core work. That's kind of what the basic fitness and conditioning coaches would, preach to field athletes, to basketball court athletes, And even then, it was nowhere near to 1,000 freaking sit-ups that I'm thinking about doing now. So it's very, very different grounds that I'm in. But if you're doing core, man, it's going to dominate the rest of your training plan. My squatting feels weird. I can feel my hip flexors. I can feel instability in my lower back. I don't feel poppy at all because of this fatigue. The overall volume that I'm willing to put out, I can't even deadlift right now. There's no way I can stabilize the lower back in the deadlift. So it takes a bit of thinking to implement this. And I can understand why a lot of the gym bros don't do this, because really what's exciting to us about going to the gym is lifting weights. We want to do dumbbells, we want to do barbells, we want to lift heavy ass weight. We don't want to be messing around with light stuff. To go to the gym and then to lie down on the floor for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, it just seems ludicrous. We pay money to go to the gym so we can have access to the machinery, to the barbells, to the dumbbells. Last thing we're going to do is pay some money and then use their freaking floor space. Everyone's got a floor space. So everyone kind of goes, oh, no, well, I'll just put in like 15 minutes, 10 minutes at the end of a session. I don't think that's going to cut it. If you think you want to advance your core to the same extent as you're thinking about everything else, you're going to have to dedicate more time, more energy. And Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day, he used to go, okay, my calves are the weakest thing. I'm going to train them first. That's my approach with core as well. When I'm the freshest, I'm going to attack the core. Because I know once I've done the squats and the deadlifts and the bench press, I'm not going to be up for laying around on the floor and doing these exercises. So let's hit it straight up when I'm fresh, when I'm ready, and then whatever's left over is left over. We're attacking the weaknesses. Is it fun? It's not fun. But I have a gut feeling. I mean, obviously it's way too early to say anything about anything, but I have a feeling that this is what separates the really strong people to the mediocre people, is the amount of power that we leak. Stability. It's not a sexy word. We like to think about strength and power, but my God, the more I am training, the more I'm thinking about all of this, stability is becoming the term in my mind. Because what is power? What is strength without stability? You need an anchor point. You need something to brace yourself against. If your legs are producing these huge amounts of force, the glutes, hamstrings, quads, adductors, they're producing huge amounts of force, and then you're going to see half of the shit leak through the transfer, through the core. I don't know. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you've got anterior pelvic tilt. To me, looking at myself, I know that I have a weak core. I wouldn't be standing like that. And my anterior pelvic tilt has gotten much worse since I've let go of basketball. Basketball was a very dynamic sport. Cut left, cut right, slide left, slide right, sprint, stop, move, twist. It was very much core involved, in movements like that. But we in the gym, we're very sagittal plane based, or we're very kind of like one-dimensional. Okay, I'm doing bicep curls. I'm doing squats now. I'm doing deadlifts. It's all a burst of movement, very linear movement, and then we stop. For some reason, the video cut out. But in the gym, usually what I was saying before it cut out was that in the gym, we're very linear in our movement. There's no dynamic movement like, playing sports like soccer, basketball, football, tennis, martial arts, where you're kind of like connecting several different movement patterns. It's kind of like you're flowing like water, right? Like it's going every which way. In the gym, it's very cut up into these nice little neat boxes, and there's no transition between the boxes. And so I think it's through these transitions that the core is really engaged. That's most challenged. It's not through these, okay, robotic type of movements that we do in the gym. It's all kind of very segmented. So I think ever since I let go of the basketball, my core has deteriorated and my anterior pelvic tilt has gone worse and worse because I'm adding more and more strength to some of these prime movers, these boxing muscles. But the gooey stuff, let's say in the core, the stuff that we can't even define freaking what's going on, it's like crisscrossing which way, every way. Those guys are not being challenged properly. And so you have a case where you're slapping on massive turbos, superchargers, huge engine modifications, but there's no transition to the tires. And so you have these little weak tires at the back, you have this weak clutch, weak transfer, drivetrain, like all these different pieces are really weak. And so like, you're not transferring anything to the ground. That's kind of what I think about core. Now, when you see a car drive past, you might think to yourself, oh, that sounds really tough, right? But how much power is it actually using to the ground? In recent times, like maybe 5-6 years ago, when I started paying attention to Evos and WRXs and cars of like this type of stuff, like, all-wheel drive type of cars, before it was all S15s, drift and, V8s and whatever. When I started paying attention to the Evos, I started thinking to myself, wow, look at the sound of that gearbox, right? The straight cut gears, like driving past. I started paying more attention to that because it was kind of sexy knowing that this car, whatever it produces in the engine is going to put down to the tire. Like it has a really strong transfer of power to the floor. It's 4 wheels that dig in and you go. It's kind of like that with core. Like you want straight cut gears, type of gearbox, really strong transfer case, strong diffs, fat tires. So whatever you produce, you get down. You kind of want to be that lifter. You're filling your potential, your full potential. You don't want to be a guy who's got 2,000 horsepower on the dyno, but then like, you're just spinning tires all day and like some freaking Mazda 3, Mazda 2 is like flying past you because there's no transfer of power. The trouble with core training is that it takes a long time to recover. Now, obviously it's too early for me to make calls, but right now I'm thinking it's all about the dose. So maybe it's too much volume that I'm using. And maybe this will all settle. But my gut feeling is maybe core is just the way it is because you're dealing with the central nerve, the spinal cord. You're dealing with the spinal cord. And so when you have local fatigue of muscles around the spinal cord, the core, you're going to be paying huge payments in terms of recovery because you're dealing with the CNS. And so if we think about what fatigues us when we're doing squats and deadlifts, many theories out there, but it could be just related to the spinal cord. So in a way, when you're doing your sit-ups and whatever else, exercises you're doing for your core, okay, we're not using hundreds of kilos of weight like squats and deadlifts, but we're still providing the same type of local fatigue to the spinal cord region. And so it's fatiguing the hell out of us. Let's see how it pans out. I'm going to try and still bust out, these sit-ups around my working days and see how it goes. But who would have thought a simple sit-up freaking demolished me. All right, guys, that's all that's on my mind today. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.